A century of discord, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, one of the most enduring and complex conflicts of our time. It has claimed countless lives and fueled instability in the Middle East. At its heart lies a dispute over land. Both claim the same small strip of territory, leading to a cycle of violence and mistrust. This conflict reverberates globally. It impacts international relations and fuels political discourse, deeply affecting millions worldwide. Understanding its history is crucial. We must examine the root causes and key events. This essay will delve into the historical roots, tracing the conflict's evolution to the present day, aiming to provide a balanced perspective, highlighting the complexities of the conflict, emphasizing the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. Peace requires empathy and understanding. It is the only way to break the cycle of violence, the only path to a future of peace and security. Zionism's rise and early Jewish immigration, seeds of tension. The late 19th century saw the emergence of Zionism. It was a political movement advocating for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This movement arose in response to growing anti-Semitism in Europe. It sought to establish a safe haven for Jews facing persecution. Theodor Herzl is considered the father of modern political Zionism. He published The Jewish State in 1896. This influential pamphlet argued for the creation of a Jewish state. This idea resonated with many Jews facing discrimination. It led to the First Zionist Congress in 1897. This event marked the formal organization of the Zionist movement. Jewish immigration to Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire, began slowly. As Zionist aspirations grew, so did Jewish migration to the region. This influx of immigrants, however, fueled tensions with the local Arab population. Land purchases and demographic shifts created friction. These early tensions would lay the groundwork for the conflict that would later erupt. Ottoman and British rule navigating a complex landscape. The Ottoman Empire ruled Palestine for centuries. Under Ottoman rule, Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived together. The relationship between these groups was not always harmonious. However, a complex tapestry of coexistence characterized the region. World War I brought about a seismic shift in the region's political landscape. The Ottoman Empire, allied with the Central Powers, faced defeat. Great Britain, a rising imperial power, saw an opportunity to expand its influence in the Middle East. The British promised Arabs independence in exchange for their support during the war. This promise, however, would later be overshadowed by conflicting commitments made to the Zionist movement. The stage was set for a clash of aspirations and a struggle for control over a land of deep historical and religious significance. The British Mandate, a crucible of conflict. Following World War I, the League of Nations granted Great Britain a mandate over Palestine. This mandate entrusted Britain with the responsibility of administering the territory. It was also tasked with preparing it for eventual independence. This period witnessed a significant increase in Jewish immigration to Palestine. This influx was encouraged by the Balfour Declaration of 1917. In this declaration, the British government expressed support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration, while expressing support for a Jewish homeland, also emphasized that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. Balancing these competing claims proved to be an impossible task. Arab opposition to the Balfour Declaration and Jewish immigration intensified. It led to violent clashes between Arabs and Jews. The British, caught in the middle, struggled to maintain order. The situation became increasingly volatile. The seeds of conflict were sown deeper. Section 5. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan for Palestine. This plan called for the creation of two states, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan. The Arab leadership rejected it. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of the State of Israel. This declaration triggered the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The war resulted in a decisive victory for Israel. For the Palestinians, the war had catastrophic consequences. This mass displacement, known as the Nakba, created a Palestinian refugee crisis. The 1948 war ended with the signing of armistice agreements. The war left a legacy of bitterness and resentment. Section 6, Wars and Occupations, shaping the conflict's trajectory. The decades following the 1948 war were marked by periods of both relative calm and intense conflict. The Six-Day War of 1967 proved to be a turning point in the conflict's history. In this war, Israel defeated Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. It captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. The 1967 war had far-reaching consequences. It led to the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. This occupation, which continues to this day, has been a major source of tension and violence. Israel's victory also emboldened the settlement movement. This movement advocated for Jewish settlements in the newly occupied territories. In 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism. The Yom Kippur War, while militarily inconclusive, shattered Israel's sense of invincibility. It also paved the way for a new era of diplomacy. Section 7. Seeking Peace Amidst Turmoil, Camp David to Oslo. The late 20th century witnessed a series of diplomatic efforts aimed at resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Camp David Accords of 1978, brokered by US President Jimmy Carter, represented a breakthrough. These accords led to a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. The Camp David Accords, however, did not address the Palestinian question directly. This issue remained a major stumbling block to peace. In the 1980s, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, led by Yasser Arafat, gained international recognition as the representative of the Palestinian people. The Oslo Accords, signed in 1993 and 1995, marked another significant attempt at peace. These accords, signed by Israel and the PLO, were based on the principle of land for peace. They aimed to establish a framework for a two-state solution. The Oslo Accords, while initially greeted with optimism, ultimately failed to deliver a lasting peace. Section 8, the First Intifada, a People's Uprising. The First Intifada, which erupted in 1987, was a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation. This uprising, characterized by civil disobedience, demonstrations, and stone-throwing protests, shook the foundations of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The First Intifada lasted for 6 years. It brought the Palestinian issue to the forefront of international attention. It also forced Israel to acknowledge the PLO as a negotiating partner. The Oslo Accords were, in part, a result of the Intifada's impact. The First Intifada demonstrated the depth of Palestinian frustration with the occupation. It also highlighted the limitations of military force in resolving the conflict. Section 9, the Second Intifada and its aftermath, a cycle of violence and despair. The collapse of the Camp David summit in 2000 and the subsequent outbreak of the Second Intifada in September of that year marked a turning point in the conflict. The Second Intifada, unlike the first, was characterized by more violence. It involved suicide bombings and targeted killings. The Second Intifada resulted in the deaths of thousands of Palestinians and Israelis. It also led to the construction of the separation barrier between Israel and the West Bank. This barrier, while touted by Israel as a security measure, has been condemned by Palestinians and international observers as a land grab. The Second Intifada deepened the divide between Israelis and Palestinians. It also led to a hardening of positions on both sides. The peace process stalled. A sense of despair settled over the region. Section 10, Gaza, a microcosm of the conflict. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated coastal enclave, has become a focal point of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ruled by Hamas since 2007, Gaza has been subjected to a crippling Israeli blockade. The blockade, coupled with repeated military operations, has had a devastating impact on Gaza's population. The Strip faces a humanitarian crisis. Poverty rates are high. Access to basic necessities is limited. The situation in Gaza underscores the humanitarian cost of the conflict. It also highlights the urgent need for a just and lasting solution for all parties involved. Section 11, the path forward, dialogue, understanding, and hope. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex and multi-layered issue. There are no easy solutions. Decades of violence and mistrust have created deep scars. Overcoming these challenges will require immense courage, compassion, and a willingness to compromise from all sides. Dialogue, empathy, and a commitment to peaceful coexistence are essential for breaking the cycle of violence. The international community also has a crucial role to play. It can encourage dialogue. It can also provide humanitarian assistance. Ultimately, a just and lasting solution must address the core issues of the conflict. These issues include the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the dismantling of settlements. While the path ahead may seem daunting, the pursuit of peace must remain a priority. The human cost of this conflict is simply too high. A future where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in peace and security is not just a dream, it is a necessity.